This video is proudly sponsored by DigimonCard.io for all your Digimon card, deck building, deck list, card pricing, and discussion needs. Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video. And today we're going to look at the new D Reaper archetype that is coming out in the next expansion set later this month. It's a very unique archetype that I think needs to kind of get an introduction to and just kind of how the general mechanics work for it. It's very interesting for a game like Digimon. So we're going to go over that first, and then we're going to have an example deck list at the end, as well as we're going to have some gameplay up on the channel later this week. So if you aren't subscribed, make sure to hit that button to get a notification of when that video goes up if you're interested in it, and let's get started. So the first kind of thing you'll notice for all of these cards is they don't have levels, including our Digitama. So this is the Mother D Reaper. It is a Digitama, so it starts in your deck, and pretty much what you do, you just hatch it as you start, and you push it up during your second turn. So this deck really wants to go first. It is kind of crazy how bad it is going second compared to going first. A lot of decks can either go either way, but this almost always wants to go first. It has a couple of effects. So all turns this Digimon can attack and can't be affected by your opponent's effects. And then main once per turn, if you don't have another Mother D Reaper in play, place one of your ADR2 searchers in play, or one of your ADR searchers in your hand at the bottom of this card's evolution sources, which we'll go over that card in a second. And then your turn, once per turn, when your Digimon with D Reaper in its traits would be played from your hand, you can reduce the play cost of that Digimon by 1 for each devolution card this Digimon has. So that's kind of the idea. You put these searchers underneath it, and then you get a lot of effects kind of based off that. So pretty much you just, turn one, normally what the play is, and we'll use it here. So if we are going first, you would hatch this here. And then from here, you would go into your ADR searcher. You were probably playing like 20 of these suckers. There are a lot of them. You can include up to 50 copies of it. And honestly, you could go with like a deck with like 40 of them and like 10 good cards, and you'd still kind of be all right sometimes. But I think somewhere between 20 and 25 is kind of the idea for it. But when playing this card in your hand, if you don't have another ADR2 searcher in play, you can reduce this card's play cost by 2. Your turn, this Digimon can't attack players, and also on play, draw 1 from your deck. So it's pretty much the way to get card cycle and like draw outside of Digivolving, because again, there's not Digivolving. And you'll see that this card also does not have a level, which is not like a level 0. It just simply does not have one, which means it's not affected by anything that says, pop one of your opponent's cards level 4 or lower. It simply does not have a level, so it's not less than 4. All of the cards in this deck do not have levels for it, so it makes it really tricky for some decks to interact with it, and it's really obnoxious when you kind of see it. So obviously this guy can't be affected by almost anything. The only way you can pop this is by swinging into it and if you can swing into something that's not suspended, so something like a Black War Greymon with a bunch of boosts to get over it. That's really the only kind of meta way right now to kind of pop this dude mid-match kind of thing. But going into this guy, so turn 1, you just play it for 1 because it's the only one in play, so you get to draw a card from there. And then afterwards, it's your turn again. You push this up, and then you can use this effect to put it underneath here. And then you have 1 source here, and then this is kind of the thing. You put a lot of sources underneath this Mother, and then from there, your card effects kind of go off from there. So obviously, you can play another one for this for 1 now that you've done it. You can even technically play it for 0 if you play it's your turn once per turn, since it does have the D Reaper trait, and just kind of go from there. So we're going to show kind of like the basic cards that most decks can go for, and then we'll just go through the actual deck list. So going through here too, so we have like the bubbles. So either security or on play, essentially. You put one of your ADR searchers from either your hand or from your field underneath your Mother. So it's still like a good play just to say, let's play this for 3, put it underneath here. And obviously you can only put 1 source underneath the Mother per turn with its own effect, but there are a couple that can accelerate that, and the more sources you get underneath here, the better. We do also have the Pendulum Feet. So on play, you look at top 3, add 1 Digimon with D Reaper in its traits and 1 ADR searcher, which means you can get 2 ADR searchers because it does have this. But this is normally just a hard cast for 3 to draw 2, which is great for what it is and helps you thin out the list. And then from here, we do have the jury. So by suspending this on a main, you can reveal top 5, place one searcher to the bottom of your Mother D Reaper sources, and place the remaining at the bottom. So like, for example, let's say we have like, let's say this is like turn 3 or so. So we got a couple of these suckers underneath here, right? We'll use the effect to play it for 2. So you can do something like this, play it for 2. Then you can use this main effect to suspend it and go from there. Something also I haven't mentioned yet too is that for these ADR searchers, it's your turn. All of your Digimon with D Reaper in their traits get plus 1k DP. So with 3 underneath there, these become 6ks on your opponent's turn, and they can swing. Like there's no prevention from swing onto Digimon or even into their security too, which is pretty nuts if you ask me. How like there's I don't know, I think there should be some kind of restriction on some of these sometimes, but that's kind of just how that works. So you can do that, look top 5, put it underneath. Next one we want to talk about is creep hands, and this one's pretty standard. It's just you play it for 5, and then it's a big blocker if you need it. And then we do have the Pilates head. I think that's how you say it. It's probably wrong. But we have main when you have Mother D Reaper in play by suspending this Digimon, delete one of your opponent's Digimon with DP less than or equal to this Digimon. So let's say you have like 6 of these suckers under here, which you should pretty much get pretty consistently if you have the deck kind of set up right. But it is super easy to do that. And then when you do, it is so this is a 9k, which you can play for free. If you use its effect, because there are 6 underneath there, so you can reduce its cost by 6, so you can just play it for free. You can suspend it and then pop something with 9k or less. So that's kind of good for what you're doing, and then you can kind of go from there. The next card we want to talk about is the Gatekeeper. This thing is such a menace, and it pretty much invalidates a lot of decks if you can get to it. So security, play this card without battling and without paying its cost, and then on play, if you have a Mother D Reaper, you get to recover 1. So it's just a free like extra security for you, but that's not even like the busted part. 2, it's just casually like 10k that you play for free, which means on your opponent's turn you can swing, and it's like a 16k. Like even if like you hit insecurity here with the 6 sources underneath here, which you will find is incredibly easy to do, you're able to get a 16k swinger, but you're even fine with just keeping this as your R, because when your Mother D Reaper has 6 devolution sources or more, all of your opponent's Digimon get security attack -1. Which means that if you don't have a way to get rid of this guy, you can't do damage to your opponent anymore. You probably just lose to them playing these weenies and then swinging in with them. It can be really obnoxious to hit into this, especially in security, and then you just go for free. But that's not all, folks. We do have a win condition here with the Reaper. So when you would play this card, Digimon, you may trash 7 or more devolution cards from the bottom of one of your Mother D Reapers to reduce this play cost to 0. So let's say we get 7 of these guys underneath here, which again does not take very long. You do get to play this for free. It is a bit of a all or nothing in the point that you have to get rid of these, but if you're playing against the right deck, you're fine. It gets this effect of when attacking, you place 2 of these searchers from your trash underneath the Digimon in any order as its devolution cards to unsuspend this, which means already with the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this gets 4 swings, and it's a 15k, but just kidding, it becomes a 17k on the first swing, and then adds plus 2k every turn after that. So this pretty much just wins the game against anything that doesn't have any blocker or has not a lot of security. And even so, like, you kind of start building a board very easily with this deck with these guys. They don't get the boost on your opponent's turn. It's only during your turn with the ADR2 searcher, but you're just playing a bunch of weenies pretty quickly, and if your opponent doesn't have a way to get rid of them, you're still just good to just do some cautionary swings in and then just kind of go from there. So it's a really kind of obnoxious archetype, and it's very cheap to build to. I don't think there's any super rares into it, but that's kind of how the deck works. So let's go to the example deck list that I have for you guys. So here is my example deck list, and it seems incomplete, and I get that. And it looks like there's just cards missing, but I assure you there are 50 cards. There's just 19s of this sucker. And in general, I don't know. I'll be honest. It's not a lot to build this deck. It's not a lot to play this deck, especially money-wise too. I think all these are commons. Uncommons are just rares. They're only running the Reaper and the Mother D Reaper from the new set, and then the TK Kari. So all in all, this is a rather cheap list for you guys. And yeah, it does some really good things. So kind of just going over it, we just kind of want 4 of the good guys. So I'd say Pendulum Feet, Bubbles, Jerry are in that, and also of course the Gatekeeper. Man, this is such it's such an opt name for it too, because sometimes it just gatekeep people from having fun or even being able to potentially win the game. You can just have this out here, and then your opponent can't do anything against it, and you just win. It's really devastating to get this sometimes. But that's pretty much the thing. 3 of the Reaper, because I think based on my testing, you almost always see it by the time you need to at 3, so I don't think that's a big issue. If you want to put like 1 or 2 more searchers in, I think that's fine. I think 25 is like the most I've seen a list run with it, and I think 20 is about right, so 19 is not far off. And like the Pilates head and the creepy hands are just more defensive tools. They more or less do the same thing. You just play it, and then your opponent either like can't do a swing, or they you can pop one of your opponent's dudes that are really obnoxious. But that is pretty much it there. And then we just have the TK Kari. So this is my little ad, and it's just to like be extra obnoxious. So TK Kari, you pretty much don't swing with this deck until you try to win the game. And unless you're playing against like something with Yellow Hybrid that, you know, has a lot of security, you know, plus effects, but like even then you just have this out, and then you're fine in a lot of ways. Like if your opponent starts to be aggressive, like one of the ways to beat this deck is just to beat them before their bomb turn with Reaper comes out. And so if you do this with TK and Kari, it just means that they're giving you more memory to work with, and it's obnoxious. It also gives you a source so you can play Tactical Retreat. And let me tell you, if you Tactical Retreat a Gatekeeper back into your security, your opponent's going to be very upset with you, and that's pretty good. So in general, that's it. Your egg deck is probably just one of these. You can have up to 4, obviously, but if you want it there, you can. And you can have more if you want to, but you really only need the 1. I guess I've seen some people run like 2, and I could see running 4 just to make it look like I have a real deck, when instead it's a Reaper deck. There's also 2 cards I didn't mention with the breakdown. There is the Horn Striker, which is a 7 cost, which gets Rush, which is fine. It's just fine. I don't think it does a lot, but if you want that as something, like if you have like 5 sources underneath this is a 2 cost 12k with Rush. So it does interact with cards, but I don't think it's needed. I'd rather, for the same kind of investment, play the Pilates head. There's also the Optimizer. So on play, when attacking, once per turn. So this has to like be dropped and then swing again for this to happen. But if one of your Mother D Reapers have 5 or more Devolution cards, reveal the top 3 cards of your deck, play 1 with D Reaper in its trait and a play cost of 10 or less, which means you can't play the Gate because it's an 11 cost. So I don't know. It's just, this is too slow. You are probably already winning the game with Reaper from here. So I think that is in a good spot. But that is pretty much the deck list for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed looking over this. It's a very interesting deck, and you're going to probably see a bunch of it, especially since it is easy and cheap to play, and it's quite effective if you don't know how to go against it. But that's going to be it for me again. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.